We'll talk about making the right decisions, alternative solutions. So since we started, I've been sharing with you several tools. Today we'll continue learning some of the tools. Hopefully we'll be able to learn more than 10 or 15 tools. So today we'll talk about deciding on alternative solutions, using different tools on deciding the best alternative solutions. So we can utilize more scientific tools, and here we'll try to look at the more or less 3 or 4 tools that you will be able to use. Okay, so let's start with decision-making matrix tool that we discussed last week. We just go back to it very quickly. So just the description is an evaluation tool that helps you to compare and choose among alternatives, right? So you will say, how many alternatives do we have? Or let's say, let's go team building. How many alternatives do we have? Do we go to Tagaytay? Do we go to Hong Kong, to Singapore? So what we try to do is to make sure that you be able to make decisions basically according to objective parameters, right? Like in OSCE, you use objective parameters. Why do we want OSCE, for example, objective structured clinical exam? Because we don't want you to grade just because of your feelings or just because of your relationship to the person you're testing. Kagalit mo siya when he was studying, so we want to have more objective tools. Decision matrix is one. So how do you construct it? We just review what happened last time. First, you select criteria for evaluating your alternatives. You know what? You have to spend a lot of time really deciding on the criteria. Anong criteria? Cost, for example. Distance, right? Safety. For example, if you're deploying doctors to the communities. If you're a medical school and you're deploying your St. Luke's and you're deploying the students to community work, probably you will talk about safety, right? There are more alternatives. Write the criteria in terms of impact, for example, cost of unmet expectation, cost of implementation, wear and tear, and so forth. And then decide on the relative weight of each criteria. So you don't just say equal. There might be bigger one. No? So list criteria for evaluating alternatives. Let's say, for example, you write a table here, right? You write a table or you prepare a table. So what you try to do is, so on the first column you will write your alternatives, right? But by the way, don't start writing your alternatives, huh? Start writing the criteria. Because if the alternative will be the first, then you might be preparing a criteria that would be biased towards an alternative. As much as possible, don't start with an alternative. Start with the criteria. Otherwise, you will have bias. So talk about, like say, impact on customer satisfaction, employee impact, need for improvement. Talk about impact on your students or parents, impact on your graduates, whatever. Need for improvement. You know, you start first with the criteria, then you try. Then after that, you select the strategies. Again, don't start with strategy. You can then add the scale. Ano ba? Impact, no impact, somewhat, or moderate impact, very, very high impact, or extreme impact. By the way, there's one basic rule in scale preparation. Do you remember what basic rule in scale preparation? What is the natural tendency for rating a scale? What is the natural tendency of the rater? Central tendency. So at one point, if you want to force the issue, you don't choose an odd number scale. Use an even number scale. After you've listed rating scales or the criteria for selection, then you list the alternative problems. On the left-hand column, have each person in the group independently rate alternative according to criteria. Have each person total his or her score, tally the score, and use result to reach a decision. Here are alternatives. Say, for example, how to communicate well with employees, right? So, alternatives. So, meron ka ng criteria dito, high, low. So, it's cost is major for them, acceptability here, and ease of implementation, time involved, total rank. So, here, then after that, they talk about alternatives. Mail to employees, insert in paycheck. Then you include already a note. Post around hospitals, like say, you put, or special feature in intercom. But remember, again, you start with rating, right? So say, Each person in the group. So si person 1, yeah, si person 1. So in this particular group, kasi medyo more complicated yung table. You have these raters here, right? 1, 2, and 3. Third rater, right? Rating cost, then rating acceptability, rating ease of implementation. Then you're going to 1, 2, 2, go. Then you total it. So total nila yung score. 13 yung mail to employees. 27 to insert in paycheck, post around hospital, special feature in intercom. So what do you think would be the best alternative for them in terms of ranking? So they took the highest score, right? You go into number 1, special feature in intercom. If you just really want to, how to best communicate important news to employees. So you have a more objective way of looking at it. You can always design it on your own. Say, for example, how do you best reach students so that they will go for counseling? Let's say our patients are not coming in, low 70% follow-up rate. What do we do with that? What will be our strategy? So then you make a decision because of that. Some precautions for the focus upfront on primary goals. Result is as good as a criteria used. So select criteria carefully. That's why the first step is criteria. Suspend criticism until you have generated an array of possibilities. If your results bother you, trust your instincts. Acknowledge that some solutions are simple and some are not. Of course, there are complicated solutions. Okay? Tree diagram. Let's go back to it again. And using the why questions. Let's just go back to the sample we used time here. Yeah? Increase available wheelchair. How? Of course, here. Pero ito, wala pa na. Sinasabi mo lang. You still have to select whether you want it. You can use the tree diagram to classify the step, to classify the approaches. But still, you need a decision-making matrix. The role of the tree diagram is for you to identify the possible alternatives. But it will not tell you what will be our alternative. We still have to select. Diba, ito tatlo eh. Keep emergency stockpile. Retrain repair worker. Institute experimental return system. Now, you still need to do a matrix for this. Ano to? Based on fund requirement, expertise, sort of thing, right? You need to still run a decision matrix at the end of the day. Okay? So this is one is improving staff behavior. Is it about set clear expectation, provide training, monitor, or provide supervisory coaching? So it's so many. But you can actually use all these approaches, right? So therefore, if you're doing this, you can have one particular goal with several strategies altogether done at the same time, right? While you are setting clear expectation, you are also providing training, you are also monitoring and providing support. At the end of the day, you will realize that you need to do all of this to be able to really make things happen. This one you're very familiar with, I know, Gantt chart, right? Of course, Gantt is a name of a person who invented the chart. Horizontal bar charts that show the time relationship among steps in an implementation plan. So many people use this. Parang lahat na lang may alam sa Gantt chart. But to make it even more useful, add a second line to show the real schedule as you proceed through implementation. And of course, you can also add the people who will be performing the procedure. Okay? Let's say here step 1, kailan siya? Week 1. This one will be week 2. This will be together. And then we finish that here. Okay, but the one version will be something like this, right? You're correct. You have collect current material responsibility path, time schedule, and sort of thing. You have to remember that those are the things that you can use.